Are we good? Okay. I'll call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. or order the budget hearing. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to Ms. Shapiro.
Thank you, board members. Tonight I'll be sharing some information regarding the fiscal year 25-26 revised budget number 1. This will be our first budget revision for the year. And we will be getting that up. There we go. Second slide, please. So I don't remember if we've gone through this process with all of the governing board members, but we present our adopted and proposed budget in June, well before we know how many students we'll have or all of our projected numbers and final numbers from the prior year's budget is complete. The state then does an analysis and lets us know in October whether we are required to do a budget revision under the state statute. In this case, we were required to do a budget revision. We were going to do a budget revision anyways because of the form situation. This is just a letter notifying us that we will need to do a budget revision. Next slide. Thank you. So there's quite a few factors that required a revision this year. These are typical, especially in a declining enrollment situation. Our staffing for the fiscal year typically happens in February prior to when we propose and adopt a budget. So this is way before we know how many students are going to show up in August. And while it might feel a little bit like crystal ball mathematics, we actually have several mechanisms for projecting enrollment based on historical data, grade level movement. HR works very closely with the budget department in order to project the numbers for our enrollment months before students come to school. So sometimes those projections are really close and sometimes not as much. Historically, the December and the May revision throughout the year is what allows us to tie that back in together and make sure that we are able to recoup every student count in our budget dollar allocation. So that's why December and May are really important months, because that's when we have final numbers from prior year. We have more of an understanding of where our enrollment's going to settle in the current fiscal year. And after December, and especially the 100th day in January, this is when I start preparing those budget numbers for the following year. In this budget, there were quite a few factors that required that revision, but nothing really outstanding. Most of it is, and I just gave a little scenario of how we have projected enrollment. So in 24-25 fiscal year, we had our final average daily membership that we presented to you on the annual financial report. And we had at that time 4,471 ADM. Now remember, ADM is average daily membership, and that is not really comparable to enrollment, but it will rise as enrollment rises and it will go down as enrollment declines. But average daily membership is how much we get per student for the first 100 days of school. In Arizona, we are only funded for our students for the first 100 days. And then it's counted on the daily. So if we have one student who comes to school in that time period for 50 days, we get a 0.5 average daily membership. If we have another student come for the full 100 days, that's a second student. And now we have 1.5 average daily membership, but we have 2 students that we need to educate, that we need teachers, we need to turn on the lights, we need to have resources for them, but we aren't getting a full 2 membership count for them. So it's kind of an interesting way that we're funded here. And that's when I refer to the ADM, that is that average daily membership. And we're always looking for 1 full membership, which is a full 100 days of attendance and enrollment in our district. In the 25-26 fiscal year, we adopted, and our adopted ADM was at 4,454. So that was the most current information that we had at the time in June, and was projected a little high. What we had seen was in the last couple of years, our enrollment decline had slowed. So we were factoring for a continued slow enrollment decline. But as you can see in 25-26 in our revised budget that we're presenting tonight, our ADM came in at 4,199. So this year we saw a pretty significant drop in our enrollment projections. We'll continue to watch this as we get closer to our May revision. What we historically see is that our enrollment does go up through the course of the year, and by 100th day, it typically increases. So I am anticipating that. It is pretty common that happens. So that's a little bit of a silver lining in our pretty dramatic enrollment decline this year. But that's kind of the history of the district. We will have some years where we decline faster than other years, and we just watch this data very closely. And again, this is why we have the ability to have revised budgets. The other thing that goes into some of the declining budget limit dollars in this particular revision was that we did notice that our SPED student weighted counts have decreased in some of our higher category areas. And we will continue to take a look at those numbers to ensure that we have the most accurate information. Last year when we did a budget revision, if you'll remember, some of our data did not get up to the state because the state made changes on their end that didn't allow that data to get uploaded to them. So we actually had to do a revision when we knew that we were going to turn back around and put those numbers back in. It was because the state system didn't allow us to update. We also had a little bit of that this year with the state not being able to come to an approved budget in such a delayed fashion. We did not have approved budget forms for this year when we proposed and adopted. So that meant we had to put everything up on old budget forms in order to meet the statutory requirement and deadline for posting our budget with the state. Because of that, we did have some data errors because those forms don't capture everything that the new forms capture. So our new forms will capture that. It was immaterial. It was our K-3 reading counts didn't get captured on the old forms. The new forms and this budget revision will capture those amounts for us. And then I think the only other piece that's a big change on the revision is that we now have our final budget balance carry forward from our prior year budget. And that carry forward resulted that approved 20% budget balance carry forward. We were able to provide 19% of that 20% from our M&O budget, and the rest came from one-time funds. So this revision, other than the increased enrollment decline, nothing surprising in this revision and nothing that's standing out to be very significant. And that is all I have.
Do any board members have any questions for Ms. Shapiro?
It's the most exciting presentation of the night.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and, do we need to do a motion for the adjournment or no?
It happens. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Anybody in the public have any questions? Okay. We'll go ahead and adjourn the budget hearing. Go ahead and open the regular meeting call to order. We'll start with the land acknowledgement. Creighton School District understands that our community of schools is located on the ancestral land of the O'odham, Jewett, and Occidental O'odham people who descended from the Hohokam and who have inhabited these lands since time immemorial. The O'odham, whose name translates literally to people, are vibrant culture and community spanning countless generations into the past, continuing to thrive in the present and carrying a powerful legacy for generations into the future. With this acknowledgement, the Creighton School District formally recognizes that the traditional care and keeping of these lands by Indigenous peoples is an aspirational model of community stewardship that we are committed to honor with practices, policy, and human relations. Ms. Marquez is here, Mr. Jones is here, I am here, Ms. Ayers is here, Ms. Carrillo is absent. We want to welcome everyone to tonight's board meeting and remind the audience of the request to address board cards that must be completed and be submitted to the board secretary if they wish to speak to an agenda item. Board policy provides for 2 cards, white cards to be submitted in order to speak to an agenda item and blue cards to be submitted in order to speak during public comments. Due to open meeting law, board members are not allowed to address items that are not on the agenda. And then can I move to approve the agenda for tonight?
Second.
Second, Ms. Ayers, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we'll start with Ms. Marquez with governing board reports.
None today.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to bring up two things.
We forgot the adoption of the revised adoption of the budget. That's right after
Welcome statement.
that's right after the adoption of
Oh, after approval of agenda, I just
Uh-huh.
went to the next page, sorry. The headers are throwing me off.
It's
Yeah,
a new,
it's
it's,
different.
for those watching at home, we were forced onto a new platform and it's very different, so.
I guess I'm thrown off because it's not its own agenda item, probably. It's like a subsection of approving the agenda. Anyway. All right, I'll go ahead and move that the governing board approve the agenda as presented previously this evening.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Oh. Don't we still need the adoption?
No, they just did it.
We just did it.
Oh, sorry. I thought you did the agenda.
No, no.
I heard agenda. I didn't hear budget. My apologies.
I can do it again just in case.
No, no, no.
Oh, okay.
You're good.
Someone rewind the tape. What was that?
Did you say the full motion?
You don't have,
It's on.
Oh, pursuant, yeah, because you didn't do the pursuant to,
I think that's
No,
why I
it
didn't
says move the
queue.
governing board adopt
down
the
here.
revised
All right,
number
I'll do
one.
it. All right, we'll go back to it. I'll move the governing board adopt the revised number one total aggregate school district budget per ARS 15905 and specifically 15905E1 for fiscal year 25-26.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Jones, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I would say maybe I don't know how it works, but if this,
Not well.
if this was like its own separate thing, it would make a lot more sense. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to bring up our community council meeting from last month. Thank you very much, Yvonne, for putting that on, and I hope to see more people at the next one. Also, thank you to Ben Parker for that presentation he gave at the community council meeting for the BPA rebuild. Very informative. And then the actual BPA rebuild open house the very next night was put on by SPS Plus Architects. And it was really well done and encouraged a lot of participation from not only community members and parents, but the students as well, which I really enjoyed. The one criticism that the right people already know, but I would just bring it up in the meeting here because it is important and something President Carrillo brought up to me at the time, and I wanted to make sure everyone heard it here, that the presentation and the boards, I call them mood boards, that's what they seem like to me, but for all the design ideas that were wonderful, but there was nothing in Spanish. And considering BPA is one of our two dual language schools, and we have such a significant population of students who are their first language is Spanish, that that was disappointing. And I think they know now for future reference, but just wanted to bring that up here at the meeting. Other than that, I don't have much else to say.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Ayers.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to talk about, I had the pleasure of coming out on Monday of Thanksgiving week and
I saw you on Instagram.
passing out turkeys. And I had so much fun. Ivan, with your outreach specialist, like they are so fun. Just dancing and having a great time. And I love doing stuff like that. And so we were out there. I brought my roommate and he did a lot of manual labor. But I also want to thank Chase because they donated a ridiculously huge amount of turkeys to our population. Everybody was so grateful and it was just really fun and nice to be out there. So I was glad that I was off work all last week and was able to do that. So thank you for putting that on and for your people to be out there because it was fun. So thanks.
We are still diligently working on our student conduct committee. We had a meeting. We have more meetings coming up. So again, I'm just making the call. If anybody knows a parent or community member, it doesn't even have to be a family member or a parent. It can be a community member, somebody who would be interested in joining the committee. Even a teacher at this point too. We don't have anybody except for people who are in some sort of administrative role. So we really need some people on this committee that aren't administrators or a board member. So if anybody has any suggestions, we'd really appreciate it. I had fun last week. I chaperoned my first field trip as a parent. I've done many getting paid to chaperone with high school students, but it brought me back to when I used to work at Kids Zone for the city of Tempe like 20 years ago, and I had a kindergarten class to myself, and I reminded myself why I went to school for secondary ed instead of a different certification. Okay. So yeah, my son is in kindergarten and we went to the Wildlife World Zoo. It was a good time. Luckily the ratios were great with the chaperones. So I only had 3 kids, but that place is big and there was a runner in my group. So it was a fun day. It was a fun day. And then it was great. It was just fun seeing all the, also luckily the ratios were so great that the teachers got to just kind of hang out together during the field trip, which I was so happy for them. I saw them eating lunch in a restaurant and I thought, oh, thank goodness they're not having to chase anyone right now. So that was fun. It's fun doing the parent things because I feel like I'm so busy half the time I can't go to things at the school or whatever. So that's been really interesting. And then I feel like I was going to say one more thing. Oh, we're getting so close to winter break. I remember those lulls, and we have them in my job too, but it's quite different when you try and, if you're dragging behind and the kids, you got to get them to go with you. So good luck to everybody. There's a little bit of time left. You can do it. And then please, please, please take some rest, whatever that looks like for you. But thank you to everyone. I know these last couple weeks are difficult, but thank you. And then I'll pass it over to Jay for his report.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it short and I'm just going to kind of reinforce what you just were kind enough to share. Winter break is nearly upon us. I know there's just shy of 2 weeks left, and these 2 weeks like into the home stretch are sometimes some of the most challenging. But I just want to thank all of our staff for all their hard work this first half of the year. We've seen people's blood, sweat, and tears. We've also, been in a lot of classrooms, just visiting and seeing what's happening in the classrooms. And one of the things that we've noticed as a general trend in the district is our tier 1 instruction is really, really improving. And so I know that doesn't happen without a lot of hard work and dedication from our teachers and our CINA team. And our principals and everyone else who supports them. So thank you so much for all your hard work this first half of the year. Please take care of yourselves, get a chance to get a break, rest, relax. You've certainly earned the 2 weeks away, and we are excited to see you back in January. So look forward to seeing you then.
Okay. We're going to move on to student outcomes focused governance. Let me get my other thing here. Okay. In the fall of 2023, Creighton School District adopted student outcomes focused governance framework to ensure a focus on improving student outcomes. This framework is grounded in 6 research-informed competencies: 1, vision and goals; 2, values and guardrails; 3, monitoring and accountability; 4, communication and collaboration; 5, unity and trust; and 6, continuous improvement. Guided by these 6 competencies, the board created a set of goals and guardrails. The goals reflect the community's vision for success, and the guardrails reflect the community's values and set boundaries for leadership. Progress monitoring. Within this framework, one of the most critical components is progress monitoring. Progress monitoring is a structured conversation between the board and superintendent where we ask, 1, does the student performance match our goals? 2, is there any evidence of growth toward the goals? And 3, is the strategy strong enough to produce that growth? When done well, monitoring supports the district by modeling reflective leadership, clarifying strategies and next steps, setting clear priorities across the system, and providing continuous feedback for improvement. This is how we hold ourselves accountable to the outcomes our students deserve, and this is how governance truly serves our community. With that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Pombo.
Thank you. Vice President Gibson McLean, members of the board, Superintendent Mann, we're presenting progress monitoring on goal number 3. And I would like to invite Dr. Dodds Karen and also Taya Stanford. They'll be presenting tonight. So goal 3 is to increase our English proficiency for emerging multilinguals. From 25% from August 2023 to 40% by August 2028 on our Azella assessment. And tonight we're presenting interim measure 3.1. We do not have the data for 3.2 or 3.3 yet. They're currently taking the FastBridge assessment. So we'll have that in a future meeting. So tonight we're looking at our DNA assessment, where it's measuring reading comprehension and reading. And so our annual target is go from 12% to 25% by the end of the school year. And currently, this is our data from last year on this data on the Azella, which was our goal was 31 and we got 35 last year on the Azella assessment. And I'm going to turn it over for our current data that we have on IBM 1.
Thank you, Dr. Pombo. Members of the board, we now look at interim measure 3.1, which measures our short-term progress using our district assessments. Interim measure 3.1 is the percentage of multilingual students in grades 3-8 who increase 1 or more proficiency levels on the DNA English Language Arts pretest to post-test, which is targeted to increase from, as Dr. Pombo said, 12% in May of 25 to 25% in May of 26. When looking at this graph, I want to remind the board of the change that we made with our correlation coefficients. So Tyson Myers, our assessment coordinator, he has gone back into our previous data and he has rerun the data utilizing those same correlation coefficients so that we can have an accurate comparison year over year. So when you look at the information from the 24-25 school year, that will be on par with the correlation coefficient cut scores of our current school year. For the 25-26 school year, 15% of multilingual students in grades 3-8 increased 1 or more proficiency levels from the pretest to interim benchmark 1, as noted by IBM 1. This is a literacy assessment measuring reading skill and comprehension. To be on track for our 25-26 goals, we need an average of 8 to 9% of emerging multilingual learners to grow in proficiency in 1 or more levels at each checkpoint, which is about 84 to 95 of our 3rd through 8th grade multilingual learners across the district. Based on the data that we have today, in this report, we are not on track to meet interim measure 3.1.
Even though it's improving each time, it's just not improving at the rate.
This table here, this was a little bit of an adjustment from what you saw last month. We wanted to provide further clarity in the school comparison. So you'll see on this slide, our schools are listed in the first column. Noted with a blue outline is a correlation with interim measure 3.1 for the DNA assessment. And this shows the information for pretest to IBM 1 for each of our schools. I'll give you a minute to take a look at that information. And then also, as Dr. Pombo shared, what we see in gray, we do not have today data to report to you specific to the FastBridge as that assessment window is currently taking place. Our students will be completing those assessments by the 12th.
So some of our planned adjustments and next steps when looking at professional development, this one is a continuation of what we presented last time in looking at our 2 SEI cohorts, which professionally develop our targeted SEI teachers who work with students receiving language acquisition services. So we have 28 targeted SEI teachers who are participating in our Crichton Professional Learning, which we've completed 3 of those 4 sessions. The next one will be in February. So we have 28 teachers who are brand new to that cohort as well. We provided similar training last year in that same venue and same format. So this is a new group of teachers. We're excited about that piece. And then in addition, we have 17 new teachers, well, some within cohort 2 and then within cohort 1 of receiving targeted intensive professional development from our outside consultant, Heidi Koski, and 4 administrators that are enrolled within those cohorts receiving that professional development as well. For our professional learning, one thing that the language acquisition team, so myself and the 3 coaches have started to do is look at our integrated instruction. So we've been doing observations. We're just starting looking at integrated instruction across our campuses to start to hone in on what are some high leverage standards that would happen across those interdisciplinary strategies that we can support teachers with, because although our students are emerging within that second language, if a school has, it could vary depending on a grade level, whether there's the 1-hour model or the 2-hour model, but our students spend a huge portion of their day in an integrated setting. So what are some ways that we can capitalize on that additional time that they are with their native English speaking peers? So we're conducting observations to look at what do we need to train our teachers in? And then also as a full TLC team, what are some things that we can start to embed across those disciplines to support our teachers and students? In addition,
I do want to show that that's something new, because initially we were just observing in the targeted SEI classrooms to when we were determining what kind of training we needed for the cohort. So this is now additional observations looking at the integrated classrooms.
Can you just real quick give a brief description what the difference is between those targeted and integrated?
Yes.
oh, I would love to. So targeted instruction is using what are called our English language proficiency standards. So looking at specific components of acquiring a second language. Whereas an integrated setting, the focus is still content standards while using English language proficiency standards to support that content acquisition. So the focus is still is around, so for example, math. Math is the focus within an integrated setting, but then supporting our English language learners with strategies and scaffolds to access that content.
Okay. So would that be, for instance, like the students all together in their classroom, they're learning math, they're supporting the English language learners as well within that, whereas the targeted is where they're kind of like in the pullout, just focusing on language?
Yes.
Got it. Thanks.
So we're just focused on acquiring the language. Yeah. Any additional questions on that? In addition, one thing that we have started, we rolled out the Azella Mimic, which we're piloting this year. So something that the language acquisition team is offering sites is ways to interpret that Azella Mimic data. Since this is the pilot and it's the Mimic as of right now, we haven't fully adopted it. We don't have proficiency correlations to what that would look like for students taking Azella. However, we have raw data to be able to look at question types. How did students perform? What were student responses within the written section? And then looking at refining our practices to reflect some of the needs that we see within that very raw data. We'll have, if that were to be adopted, we would then be able to have the correlation between that and Azella. But at this time, it's still a tool that we can be able to use to reflect on student learning and also our practices to meet those needs of our kiddos. And then we also had our second family engagement night, which supported families with looking at Azella, looking at their students' results and scores from the reassessment of last year in the spring of last year. So honing in on what is the test ask? They looked at questions themselves, and we provided them with resources as to how they could support their student at home with those different components within Azella.
Did that family engagement night take place already? Or
It
is that
did.
coming up?
Yes,
Okay.
it was last Thursday.
Okay. Do we have numbers for attendance of that yet?
Yeah, roughly right now there were 77 families or students represented.
Okay.
One of the things we're looking at too is we recognize that it's a challenge sometimes for families to join us for some of those evening sessions. And so after looking at those numbers, one of the conversations we're currently having is how do we create more access for families to that information? And so I know the team's working on also creating like a recorded video to be able to then have shared out with our families. So that way they could, if they weren't able to be physically present, that would give them an additional means to access. One of the things we noticed in the spring was there was sometimes some reluctance for families to come out. And so we want to make sure, you know, that we don't allow that reluctance to be a barrier to families accessing the resource, because the information that was provided was really excellent and super helpful. So we want to make sure that it's reaching as many families as possible.
Right. Because I recall last year the numbers were a bit higher.
They were higher earlier in the year, but they dipped off
Then they
at
dipped
the
off
end.
for, yeah.
So when
yeah.
we had roughly, for our first session, we had roughly the same number of students. It was around 123 as we did the first quarter of last year. There are some things that I think my team and I could reflect on as to the placement of
Yeah,
of
and I
the
think
time of
just,
year.
you know, the current climate and stuff,
Mhm.
like you mentioned, there's a reluctance to go out. And also you gave me the idea when you mentioned maybe like making like a video, and that would actually be something cool, because if there is like how to support your kid for Azella, it's something they can access, like the teachers can resend it out
Mhm.
just before, you know, the Azellas are taken, or the teachers can send or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that idea. So then they can access it whenever. Maybe they
Mhm.
want to study it every week. Who knows?
We can only hope.
And I know anytime, just for what it's worth, anytime you're trying to wrangle parents for an event, if there's food and childcare, you're more likely to get them out.
And now we'll move into the questions that were provided by the board. One of the questions was, how can we support the schools who have the greatest number of ELL students? There's one of the biggest things that we implemented both last year and then this year, we received the SEI budget grant through the Arizona Department of Education, which allocates funding for certified teacher staffing. Those additional funds allowed us to create 2 full-time teacher positions across 3 of our campuses. So one full-time educator position, and then the other one split between 2 of the campuses. Those being Excellencia, Gateway, and Mackin. Those at the start of this year were the 3 campuses that had the highest ratio of emerging multilingual learners to the rest of their population. Sorry.
Quick question on that.
Yeah.
Is that, so when it says allowed us to add 2 new teacher positions, are those, sorry, my brain, SEI teachers or classroom teachers?
Thank
Okay.
you. Yes, I'll clarify. That is for targeted SEI instruction.
It's a grant that we apply for every year, so we usually don't find out until July or August if we were approved for that grant. And so at that time, we look at our enrollment and our numbers to figure out where would be the best place to hire teachers for that SEI classroom.
I'm surprised that grant wasn't cut by this administration, but thankfully we got it.
It comes out in the spring, so hopefully it's coming out again.
Yeah,
Have
Knock
time
on
to
wood.
reapply.
yeah. Well,
And then also another component to be able to support schools with the greatest population or number of our emerging multilingual learners was that the board supported additional language acquisition coaches allocated based on numbers.
So that was one of our input adjustments for this year, and the board was kind enough to support that adjustment.
Another question we received was what supports are being given to the teachers at each site? And as you can see on the slide, teachers of targeted SEI instruction do receive support from their SEI coach or perhaps a content coach assigned by their school leader. For example, a classroom teacher might have a primary coach for math, but might have a secondary or a support coach that is brought in for SEI support. And teachers who only teach targeted SEI instruction, they do receive that professional development either through their cohort 1, as we call it, or cohort 2, as well as our Creighton Professional Learning.
And the last question was, how are principal, coaches, paraprofessionals, and district personnel maximizing this support? So currently support is consistently provided to 17 teachers and those 4 administrators that we mentioned that are enrolled in those professional development cohorts, years 1 and 2. 48 teachers are receiving direct coaching from a language acquisition coach, and 0 paraprofessionals receive coaching or professional development for SEI. In addition, some of the learning that we've had through our DataWise learning walks is that we had, over the last 2 quarters, 19 SEI targeted instruction classrooms were visited, and 10 of those 19 earned a score of 3 or 4 for curriculum resources and planning, which was one of the things that the language acquisition team had developed last year, was creating specific unit guides for grammar, scope and sequence guides for grammar to support those teachers who are in the cohort and language acquisition as a whole for our emerging multilingual learners. And in addition, we are now looking at the next level, which would be the integrated instruction and how we can best support that across disciplines. What professional development is needed, and then what strategies are high leverage to be able to support our teachers and students.
Dr. Pombo, correct me if I'm wrong. This year's the first year that we've been able to get into those SEI classrooms, right? Or were we able to visit last year for learning walks specifically?
We were able to visit them last year. It just depends on the time that we're there and if SEI instruction, if that class is taking place at that time.
That makes sense.
But what we're doing, which I know Taya has made this on her EduClimber, is monitoring the teachers that are in the SEI cohort, how they're doing with their student data. And then also we look at it for their learning walk data.
Of the 17 teachers in the professional development cohort, are those spread over all the campuses?
Correct.
So there's representation from each campus in those? Okay.
Between the years 1 and 2, yes.
Oh, okay.
The first year we asked the teachers to be on it, and then the second year teachers volunteered to be on it.
So there was an application process, a level of interest by teachers to be part of that year 1 cohort.
If you'll recall from last year's reports, there was a lot of hesitancy for people to join in last year. And then once they experienced it, then there was a lot of positivity that came out of it. And so that's likely why people were already waiting in line before we opened the doors to say, we can accept more people.
So those who did it, when you say year 1 cohort, were those the ones doing it for the first time? Year 2 cohort are the ones who did it last year?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's some teachers that are in their second year of the cohort training, and many teachers are their first year this year.
Okay. Will there be a third year? Is that something that, or how does, or?
We hope so, depending on the budget. We hope we can
Right, yeah, I'm
continue.
Or by then they'll be experts, I don't know.
Yeah, we are likely to recommend that as an input for next year. So
We received very positive feedback in the survey from Creighton Professional Learning, utilizing our expert consultant. But at the same time, we have some experts on the team as well who are learning alongside. And so we are grateful to be able to continue to support when she's not here on our campuses. And one thing too, Board Member Marquez, with our model for the professional learning, to reacquaint the board, the members of the cohorts receive training, in-person training, but then they also have a follow-up where we expect them to take the knowledge that they're gaining in their professional development and apply it in their classrooms. So they have some time to go back and practice, and then they have a formal walkthrough with our consultant, with Taya and members of the team and the principal from the campus. They watch the teacher applying their new learning to say, like, we're here to support you. We're proud of you for taking what you're learning and giving it a whirl in your classroom. And then what more can we do to continue to support you? So those have been valuable opportunities for, of course, the teacher, but then also our team to be listening to our consultant, giving that whisper coach feedback, giving that immediate feedback, and our principals too, in learning what it is that our teachers are learning in their professional development.
Any more questions from the board about this progress monitoring report?
Yep.
You said nope. Sorry. Okay. Ms. Ayers, anything from you? Okay, thank you so much for the presentation and for answering all of our questions. I'll go ahead and move to approve progress monitoring report 2 for goal 3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to number 5, public comments. Do we have any public comments, Ms. Juarez?
We do not.
All right, moving on to number 6, approval of consent. Ms. Marquez told me that she would like to pull agenda item I. Does anyone else want to pull anything? Okay, I'll move to approve the consent agenda items A through H.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and moving on to agenda item 6I, which is the approval of student outcomes focused governance, progress monitoring report for guardrail 1.
So I wanted to pull this one, same reason I pulled it last month, build an important thing to be looking at and monitoring it. And I know it'll likely come up hopefully in a future agenda for us to discuss putting this back up with the SOFG portion of our meetings. So for consistency, I wanted to pull that. I did meet with Mr. Mann yesterday and I had a few questions. There were just some numbers that under the analysis where it was written didn't quite align with what it was showing on the graph. So I had some questions about that. And let me find that particular page, but I was able to ask Jay, who then sent an email to Dr. Burgess, who then happened to see in the lobby, and she answered those for me. So just to make sure that when we do look at these, that if there's maybe if the numbers aren't matching up for whatever reason, that maybe there's an explanation as to, these numbers were from wherever it was pulled from, or just, because when we're looking at it and we don't have that context, it's well, they got this all wrong.
The reason we couldn't add that explanation is we can't make a change once we're within 24 hours of the board meeting.
Right.
So we would have, it's kind of why we have our progress monitoring calendar where we so many days in advance and all that. But otherwise we can certainly integrate it and it would have been included in the presentation.
Yeah, and I'll make sure, I know I dropped the ball on getting my questions to you sooner, so I'm gonna make a pact here to be on top of that and get those questions out within time to make any adjustments.
Can I just ask, Nicole,
Yeah.
where is that you're seeing the discrepancy? Sorry, just so
Now
I know what we're looking at.
So I got my papers all mixed up here between the guardrail and the goal report. It is the graph. Sorry, please hold. So for instance, on the one that says attendance by month, interim measure 1.1, if you go down to the second bullet, it says in October, overall ADA dropped to 1 percentage point below the target goal. But then it's 2%. So because it was 80 versus
It is
So it's-
actually 1%. So if you look at it again.
the goal is 80.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find the chart. So
I
that
can
way
put it up
can-
there if you want, but I don't know.
Yeah,
It's this page.
So it says 80%,
Average.
what she's saying for
Correct,
November.
But the prior year it was 81%. It dropped from 81% to 80% year over year.
But it's, but,
If you look at
but
the
it's
orange,
points below the target goal.
Last year in November, it was 78%. I'm confused by what you're
Wait,
saying.
no, we're looking at
no, we're looking
October.
at October. So if you look at the second
Oh,
bullet,
October, sorry, yeah. I
it
see what
says
you're
in
saying now.
October, the overall ADA dropped to 1 percentage point. It does say below the target goal. and it
Yeah,
is
that's where
actually
the
2.
confusion
Yeah.
is, I think.
I think what it was intended to say was in October, it dropped by 1% from the prior October.
From the prior school year.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're already aware of these edits and they're going to be made and updated online.
We'll update them, and then for the final version of the progress report,
Uh,
I would suggest the board approve it with the adjustments as discussed, and then we will go ahead and post. Well, we're moving all of our goals and guardrail progress monitoring reports to a repository on the website, so we'll go ahead and make certain that that corrected version is posted. We can't change it for this meeting because we're
Totally,
within
no, I
that posting
understand.
period.
One question I have about that moving forward, I mean, this is a tiny change, but if there is a change to a guardrail report after it's already been posted and after the video's already been uploaded to YouTube in the future, I guess what is our plan to correct something like that? Because I know it takes a lot of time to do the YouTube video. I saw it on my feed yesterday.
Yeah.
Could we do it on the notes of the video or the comments or something in the caption?
Yeah, we could find a way to add,
Okay,
so that way it's captured there.
okay.
Ideally, if we can get the information prior to that, then we can integrate it into the video.
Gotcha.
And in a worst case scenario, just so you know, the board does have, as part of this process, the board also has an option to not approve the report, and then we would bring back an adjusted report for board approval. in the
Gotcha.
future.
Anything else about the guardrail report, Ms. Marquez?
No.
Anybody else have anything to comment on the guardrail report? Okay, I move to approve item 6I, the guardrail, the progress monitoring report for guardrail 1. Sorry, it's progress monitoring report 2 for guardrail 1.
Second.
All of in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to 11. Okay, we have before us a couple documents. You all should have seen them posted. It's consideration and possible action for adopting agreements with Copper State Education Alliance. There's a membership agreement and an advocacy agreement totaling, I guess, just under 20,000 total, but each one is a separate agreement. So is there any discussion on this? Anybody have anything they'd like to talk about?
Just need a moment to kind of go through it again. As far as our ASBA membership, is that something that's still active?
No, we did not renew it this
Okay.
year.
Do you have anything? Mr. Jones, do you have anything?
I would just ask, what are our options if we choose not to go along with this membership agreement?
Well, one of the things I would say is that there's two different things here, right? Like you could do the membership agreement and not the advocacy or vice versa, which would be a little weird, but, so I think there's an option out there to get it through ASBA. I don't think I can't speak for all of us, but I don't know that that's the direction our board's been moving in. aside from that, there isn't another like organization that necessarily would be doing this advocacy piece for us as a board and as a district on the like individualized level as they are presenting to us. Certainly there's other various organizations that our district is member of that have advocacy elements to them. But again, those are voted on in much the same way as ASBA, which are like consensus from the general membership, and they set their own agendas. I think this, from what I'm gathering and reading this and discussing in my own personal time, was understanding that this is like more personalized and individualized than other things we've normally been involved in. But other than that, the alternative is just nothing, I guess. Unless somebody has something they'd like to bring to the board's attention or find for us.
What was so with ASBA, was it similar where it was an advocacy agreement and a membership agreement?
No, I think it was like part of being a member of the organization comes with this like umbrella of things. And so every year at the conference, a part of that would be, you know, if you're like the delegate or whatever, part of that would be voting on the political agenda and setting the political agenda. But again, if you're not on the side of whatever the majority is for that political agenda, it might not be going in the direction that your district is interested in, I guess that's what I should say, so to speak.
Yeah. What was the total fees for ASBA at the time?
Do you remember,
Similar?
Hilda?
Last time?
15,000.
Yeah. Including policy services, right?
With policy services, it was 20,000.
Oh, it was 20 with policy, so it was 15 without policy. Thank you.
But now we've got are we doing our policies? Isn't that through the trust?
That is correct. And this year, that's $500.
$500?
But it is, we've been notified that it will be going up in future years. Unless Hilda corrects me and it wasn't 500. Okay. I was just watching your face. I wasn't sure.
I mean,
And that ASBA, that was an annual membership,
mhm.
8,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just to give some perspective, I'm also like the legislative co-chair for an organization called Arizona Attorneys for Criminal Justice. We get a discount from our lobbyist who is Creosote Partners, and they charge us $40,000. So, and that's for like personalized stuff for our organization, and that's a discount. So I'm just, as a comparison. And we're maybe doing like maybe one proactive piece of legislation. It's not some aggressive thing. So I'm just saying that like normally this stuff is pretty pricey to begin with. Anybody have anything else? I'll go ahead and do these separately, just for the good of the gander here. All right, so I'll go ahead and move to approve the CSEA membership agreement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, and then I'll go ahead and move to approve the CSEA advocacy agreement. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That's good. Abstain.
Okay. Moving on to 11B, which is discussion and consideration on signing a letter of support for First Things First. If you had seen, there's a letter obviously attached on the agenda. If you're not aware, First Things First is an organization in Arizona that's run by, the state of Arizona, but is really who invests in all the everything early childhood education in Arizona, including family resource centers across the state. So I think obviously if we were to do this as a board, I think we all wholeheartedly support our family resource center and anything like that across the state as well. But obviously we have some interest in this for our district as well. Does anyone have any questions about signing on to the letter as a district?
I just want to point out it is the primary, I know you mentioned
Yeah.
it, but I just want to reiterate it's the primary funding source for our Family Resource Center, which is very important to us in our community. They've also, even this year, I believe we've received some support for preschool programs. So
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of solid early childhood education work that's supported through First Things First, and unfortunately their funding's at risk. I know not that this would have any sway on the board, but I know it's my intention to sign on to it as an individual as well.
Yeah, I do. I intend to do that as well.
And I believe, Hilda, was there a video that President
Yes. The link is
Creo
here.
wants to play?
Oh, we want to play the video. Okay, let's do it.
When it comes to supporting early childhood programs, First Things First needs sustainable funding to maintain a lasting impact on Arizona. For almost 20 years, First Things First investments have created a substantial impact for the state of Arizona, benefiting many families and employers. We must be clear about the road ahead. First Things First's annual revenues have decreased by nearly 40%, more than $63 million a year when compared to the level of funding when we began operations 20 years ago. That reality places core services such as home visitation, developmental screenings, and quality early care and education in jeopardy. Through those services and investments, 2,800 full-time jobs are supported every year. More than $323 million is generated in economic output yearly. Additionally, an estimated $8.5 million was collected for the state general fund, as well as $9.7 million in local tax revenues generated annually as a result of First Things First supported activities. We need your support as funding for early childhood programs is at risk. The state's tobacco revenues, which fund First Things First, are rapidly declining. That's why it's crucial to secure sustainable funding sources, such as closing the tobacco tax loophole to also include vapor and nicotine products for early childhood programs and services. For the last 20 years, vape and nicotine products have not contributed to the early childhood system like voters intended. I urge you to speak to your elected officials about the importance of early care and education for our children's future and Arizona's future. Please look for ways to take action at firstThingsFirst.org/advocate.
Thank you, Russell. All right, so I'll go ahead and move to approve 11B.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, legislative political report. Ms. Marquez, do you have anything?
Yeah, so yesterday, the State Board of Education voted to, let's see, per ARS something. Essentially, they're going to convene a committee, make a committee to go through, so there's two parts. So one is to go through the state teaching standards and remove any mention of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this isn't, some people, I've heard rumblings like, oh, they're getting rid of all DEI from schools. It's not quite that, but it's obviously a start.
Do you know if they defined?
They did not define, so when they did motion to pass it, they motioned to pass it with an amendment that DEI be like tightly defined and that it stay within the scope of, I forget the language and I don't have the lingo of it, but basically to stay within the parameters of teaching stuff. I'll have to go back to the meeting and
It's
see what
okay.
it said. But it was still disappointing. And I know one of my many issues with it is, right now that board has 2 vacancies. So the I think it's like a admin or someone from a charter school, as well as a president from a community college. So that represents like probably at least 350,000 students across the state that did not get a representation in that vote. They could have waited 1 month to get those folks on there. And it's just, it's a like I mentioned in my board report last year, we've got authoritarianism coming down on us from our federal administration, and now we've got our own state board of education capitulating, obeying in advance to these essentially, it's still playing out in the courts. We don't even know if this is legal for the administration to tell us we have to remove DEI without DEI even being defined. That's one part of it. The second thing they voted on was in the same fashion to start a committee to look at SEI, so to look at structured English immersion. I'm not sure if that has to do with the teaching standards or if this is just, Tom Horn's play at trying to remove dual language learning, but also going through that to remove any, DEI. It's like, how are you going to talk about teaching English language learners without talking about diversity and equity and inclusion? Anyways, it's but one thing that caught my attention with that one is that they also threw in the word accessibility. So not only are they going after DEI, but they're coming after accessibility. So so that's on the horizon. They did with that one as well, throw in the amendment of narrowly defining what the DEI is supposed to mean and to stay within educational parameters. They'll be looking for individuals to serve on these committees, and they said they'd be reaching out to districts from all the counties and
Interesting. Sorry. They released a highlights of the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And they said that the expert working group will be charged to establish the definitions for the terms in questions and limit subsequent recommendations to the technical alignment necessary to comply with the order, while preserving necessary pedagogical language to secure high quality instruction and workforce readiness.
There you go. Those are the words they threw in.
Sounds like they said the same thing for the SEI endorsement.
Right.
situation.
Yeah. And so it was just, that was a little annoying. But yeah, so, in their slideshow, they talked about, we'll get representatives or people from different districts and different parts of the counties. And they also threw in Arizona Education Association and teachers and, trying to get parents. And so I'm hoping, the AEA, make sure they hold their feet to the fire and get somebody good on there, that committee. I guess I don't know if this is a good thing. I mean, just being on, you've been on a policy committee, like it's a work that could take a long time. So maybe it's something that could get stretched out until we have a new superintendent of public instruction. And then that person,
Well, also it could
I don't
be,
know, but
depending on how this works legally speaking, I don't know how it works for them because I don't know the statute, but I don't know that it necessarily would be subject to open meeting laws if it's a expert working group, So it may just happen in private. And then you may not know what's going on. Also, additionally, just so you know, the reason why there's openings on this board and many others is because most boards at the state level require advice and consent from the Senate. And so the Senate is not going to approve anyone to be on any board right now. Like they won't even hear it. So those vacancies are not going to get filled probably
the ones on
like any board, but
I thought at the meeting, they said something about swearing in for those vacancies.
Oh, they've appointed somebody?
I'd be interested in finding out who that.
My
that's gonna
understanding
be,
is the
but-
governor did appoint people, but
But the Senate has to approve them.
right.
They aren't willing to
But
do
if the
anything.
Senate doesn't approve them, then I guess they can serve for a year, but they.
Yes, they can
beyond
serve
that.
for a year, but then that
So
expires.
it's these like
Yeah,
these political games that the legislators like to play, like, just
yeah.
do your job.
And in some
vote for these
situations, they're
people.
just not bothering to appoint anyone anymore
Yeah.
because it's a waste of time for some people.
Yeah. So we'll
Okay.
see. And then, but then obviously whatever revisions this committee makes to the SEI and the teaching standards then has to go back to the board and they have to vote to approve it. So then you know, we'll have to see then what changes are being proposed and see if we can sway them to vote accordingly. But we'll have to see. That's all I know of as far as what's been going on.
Mr. Jones?
I have no political report.
I just have something fairly quick. I know that it's hard sometimes because we focus it on educational issues, but everything is intertwined. And so I will make an announcement about this. Our district has 3 city council districts that kind of thanks to gerrymandering, there's 3 city council districts within our little school district. So anyway, there is a city council meeting next week, and 2 things are coming up. One is the new memorandum of understanding with the Phoenix Police Department. If you don't know what an MOU is, it's basically the entire labor contract and how the city contracts with the Phoenix Police. But that involves everything that the Phoenix Police do, how they interact with the community, with schools, with anybody. Additionally, they're going to be considering updates to park ordinances, which include changes that could significantly affect how harm reduction services are able to operate in our public parks. So if those are things that catch your attention, they are definitely things that have consequences, real consequences for people in our neighborhoods and in our district. And, you know, we have unhoused folks who live in our district, and often lots of folks, you know, turn to public spaces like parks and can be severely impacted by how those are policed and how even the park rangers operate there, and then harm reduction services as well. So if you're interested in that, they always hold meetings at very inconvenient times for people that have a Monday through Friday job. It's December 17th at 2:30 p.m. But you can email or call your representative, and you can look online on the city's website to get more information. I don't think I have anything else. You?
No.
All righty. Future agenda items. Anybody have anything they want to add to future agenda items? Oh, okay. All right. I will go ahead and move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for presiding, Katie.
Yeah.